It is frustrating to understand native speakers when learning the English language because it feels like they're speaking a totally different language. That's been one of my biggest challenges when I was studying spoken English, and I bet some of you too. If you're anything like me back then this video is for you. I'll break down 7 things that make it difficult to understand native speakers and some tips on how to understand them better. Hello there guys, Abdurrahman here. This video was inspired by one of you guys, so let's dive in. Alright, so the first one is speed of speech. Native speakers naturally speak fast because it's their mother tongue. And we do that as well in our languages, so yes, when it's your mother tongue, you speak it fast because you use it for many things. When you are happy, you want to really express something really fast because you want to share it. And when you are in danger, you really want to warn people. So yes, when it's your mother tongue, you'll be speaking it very fast. You can get around this challenge by getting used to fast speech by watching or listening to podcasts, watching movies and YouTube videos. And that's it. You're gonna nail it, trust me. Abdurrahman, would you want to go home? What did you say? What video are you watching? I'm watching a video on how to understand native speakers more. Alright, finish it. The second one is contractions and reductions. This is basically reducing the size of words. So a weird classification I came up with is grammatical contractions. Things like had not becomes hadn't. Things like would not becomes wouldn't. Things like will not becomes won't. So in these examples we're contracting 2 words. In some cases we might contract 3 words. Couldn't have is an example. So I couldn't have called him, or I couldn't have done that. This one is really easy because if you have got a background in grammar or anything like that, you are going to nail this one. Another category, at least in my opinion, is informal contractions. So things like going to becomes gonna. Things like I want to becomes I wanna. So I wanna go home, he's gonna do this, he's gonna do that, alright? So these are examples of informal contractions. Sometimes the sounds of some letters in words are dropped. So for example, things like library becomes library. I wanna go to the library. Something like probably becomes probably, okay? I'd probably do this later. So there's really a lot of things that we contract and reduce the size of to make our conversation, our speech, our talking way easier and faster. And if you want to get around this, learn common contractions because that is going to help you a lot. From where, you may ask? From YouTube videos. Just type in common English contractions and you'll get them. Another one that is connected to the one I mentioned is connected speech. This is basically blending together words in a sentence. In other words, we don't distinctly pronounce words in a sentence. So something like, what are you doing becomes what you doing. Something like, would you want to go home becomes, would you want to go home. Did you eat becomes, did you eat. The examples to this are many, but I'll leave it there. So connected speech is one of the ways that make it very difficult to understand native speakers. If you want to get used to connected speech and learn them, watch educational videos on YouTube, just like this one, and also watch movies because that's a great way to improve your familiarity with it. Another one is the different accents of the English language. So English is spoken by a bunch of countries, okay, scattered around the world. So you've got Australia on the other side of the world, you've got America, and in the middle, Europe is the UK. So obviously the differences in geographic locations is gonna lead to the rise of accents. So a classic word for accent differences is the word water. So in British English, that is the standard British English, it is water. But in American English, it becomes water. Excuse me if I'm not pronouncing it well, okay? And then in Australian English, it is something like water, water. So the differences in accents is really going to lead to difficulties in understanding native speakers. So more examples on accent differences. So we got the glottal stop in British English. So something like slot becomes slot. The word but becomes but. in some variations of UK accents, the glottal stop might come in the middle. So something like getting becomes getting. Something like water becomes water. Another example that leads to differences in English because of accents is gliding over letters, and that is classic for American English. So something like instrumental becomes instrumental. Okay, something like fundamental becomes fundamental. Okay, so fundamental, fundamental. Okay, the T is dropped somehow, I don't know. So they really, there's this gliding over letters that is very classic of American English. And then we got the open mouth for Australian English, so something like part or part, if you are American, is like pa, something like that in Australian. I'm not really good at Australian accents, but generally that's the vibe that I get from Aussie accents. So the solution to this is really focusing on one accent at first and then listening to other accents so that you are able to understand people who speak in different accents. Idioms and slang is another thing that makes it difficult to understand native speakers. So idioms are basically expressions with a deeper hidden meaning. So for example, he was over the moon when he heard the news doesn't necessarily mean that he was literally on the moon when he heard the news. It just means that he was happy to hear the news. Another one is hit the sack. It doesn't necessarily mean to hit the sack, but it means to go to bed. Slang, on the other hand, is informal language that is used among native speakers, usually casually and when they're not serious. So words like chill, hey yo bro chill, something like riz, I'm gonna riz you up. However, I have to say that slang changes over time and new ones come up over time. Something like riz, the word that I just used, just came up in the recent, during COVID, and it became popular in last year, in 2024, and the Oxford Dictionary actually, or was it the Cambridge Dictionary, made it the word of the year. So yeah, so if you want to master slang and at least get used to them, you need to follow content that explains idioms and slang. I'll leave links to those sources in the description. Another one is cultural references. So native speakers might refer to some things based on the history of their country or something common in their culture. So you might hear of something called the Watergate scandal. So they might say something like this is a Watergate moment for me. So the Watergate scandal in the US is a scandal with one of the US president, I think President Nixon. So things like that might set us off, we as people who are learning the English language. And then lack of proper enunciation. That is, native speakers don't pronounce things as distinctly and properly as we might do. They focus on how the message sounds rather than individual words. So something like probably you will get it soon, probably you will get it soon becomes probably you'll get it soon. And I think I'm pronouncing things very clearly because this is something that you wouldn't really want to have, especially if you are someone who is planning on taking some leadership roles, okay? You have to be very articulate and you should be able to communicate very effectively, efficiently and clearly so that all people understand you. But if you see someone eating up the words like that, just know that they are focusing on the message, how the message sounds, rather than individual words. So get used to how the message sounds. Finally, I want to take this opportunity to thank you guys for giving me 5k subs. This is really amazing. I really appreciate that. I really appreciate your supportive comments in the comments section. I do read them all, even though I don't respond to all of them, but I do read them all and they leave a mark on me. So thank you all for subscribing to this channel, and I know I'm doing you a disservice by not uploading as consistently as I should, okay? So I'll try to upload consistently and I think we should have a Q&A session sometime soon. So I'll make a community post for you to ask me questions, and for people who don't like publicly commenting on community posts or even videos, you can always DM me on my Instagram. So thank you for watching, and see you in another video. Okay, would you want to go now? Okay, I'm ready now. Let's go. All right, let's go.